You think they don't care. You think they're cold. You think they're incapable of love. But here's the truth. The avoidant cares more than they'll ever show. And the proof of that love? It doesn't live in reality. It lives in fantasy, in their imagination. They are the perfect partner. In their mind, they give love without fear. But the moment it has to exist in the real world, they freeze. They run. They disappear. Why? Because for the avoidant, fantasy feels safe. Reality feels dangerous. And once you understand why, you'll never mistake their distance for lack of feeling again. The secret world they retreat to. Avoidants don't just pull away from you. They don't just disappear into silence. They disappear into a world you can't see. A world that feels safer than the one you share with them. A world where they are never criticized, never abandoned, never overwhelmed by the weight of your love. That world is fantasy. And to them, it's not just an escape. It's survival. Because here's the part people often miss. Avoidants are not emotionless. They are not empty. They are not heartless. If anything, they feel so much. That reality becomes unbearable. In childhood, many avoidants learned this lesson early. Love was inconsistent. Sometimes warm, sometimes rejecting. Sometimes safe, sometimes frightening. So they built a coping mechanism. Don't rely on love out there. Keep it safe in here. And here is their inner world. A private sanctuary where they can imagine connection without the pain that reality always seemed to bring. Think of it like this. A child reaches out for comfort, but the caregiver is cold, or distant, or unpredictable. The child doesn't stop needing love. They just stop showing it. On the outside, they look independent. On the inside, they're retreating into imagination. There, in their mind, they can create a version of love that feels consistent, that feels reliable, that never abandons them. Fast forward into adulthood, and that same pattern repeats in their relationships. You, their partner, may see them shut down, but inside, they might be picturing a perfect moment with you, replaying the way you smiled last week, remembering the way you touched them months ago, living in the memory. Because reality feels too risky. That's why so many people get confused. How can they seem so detached, yet also so strangely affected? How can they ignore you for days, but then recall the exact words you once said? The answer lies in this secret world. Avoidants often live more in fantasy than in the present. Fantasy is safe. Reality is dangerous. In fantasy, they can love you fully. In fantasy, they can be close without fear. In fantasy, they can imagine giving and receiving intimacy, with no threat of being smothered, rejected, or abandoned. But in reality, your real closeness feels like a demand. Your real affection feels like a trap. Your real availability stirs up all the old panic they learned as children. So what do? They retreat. They pull away from you. Not because they don't love you, but because their love feels safer at a distance. Let's go deeper into this. When you love an avoidant, you might feel invisible at times. You might feel like they don't notice the little things. But the truth is, they notice everything. They store details, moments, expressions, words, inside their inner world. A partner once said, "I thought he didn't care." But months later, he repeated something I said, word for word, something I had even forgotten I'd told him. He'd been holding it in his mind the whole time. That's the avoidant. They look absent, but they're not. They're just living the relationship in a place where they feel safer. Fantasy gives them control, and for an avoidant, control equals safety. In reality, you might pull away from them if they get it wrong. You might get upset if they say the wrong thing. You might need more than they feel able to give. But in fantasy, they never get it wrong. They never disappoint you. They never feel too much or not enough. So while you're aching for them to be present, they're loving you, but in their imagination. Here's the irony. Many partners mistake this for lack of care. They assume, if they're not showing love here, it must mean they don't love me at all. But in truth, their love is there. It's just buried, hidden, stored in a place they believe is safer than reality. It's like having a treasure chest. They never open in front of you, but it's there, full of everything they've collected about you. Every detail, every memory, every moment they didn't let themselves show on the outside. And this is why avoidance can surprise you. They might seem cold, but then suddenly, they do something that reveals just how much they've noticed, just how much they've cared all along. Because love has always been there, just not always in the world you share. Here's the most painful part for many people. Fantasy doesn't just protect the avoidant. It keeps you out. Because while they're safe in their mind, you're left outside the walls. You're longing for closeness. They're too afraid to allow. You're craving presence. They've retreated from. You feel the absence, but you don't see that inside, they're still connected to you, just not in a way that meets your needs. That's the paradox. Avoidants are not unloving. They're just afraid of loving in reality. So they keep it alive in fantasy. And if you've ever felt like you were fighting a ghost, that's why. The avoidant doesn't vanish into nothing. They vanish into a secret world where love feels safe to them, but out of reach to you. Why reality triggers panic instead of safety. For most people, love feels like safety. A hug feels like comfort. A kiss feels like reassurance. A partner's presence feels like home. But for the avoidant, the very things that are supposed to feel safe are the exact things that set off alarm bells. Why? Because for them, closeness isn't comfort. It's risk. It's danger. It's panic. And to understand why, we need to go back to how their nervous system was shaped. In childhood, safety is not just about food or shelter. It's about emotional connection. A baby cries, and someone comes. A toddler reaches out, and someone responds. A child feels fear, and someone soothes. That's how the brain learns. Closeness equals safety. But for the avoidant child, that message never landed. Instead, they learned. Closeness equals confusion. Closeness equals inconsistency. Closeness equals disappointment. Maybe their caregiver was loving sometimes, but cold other times. Maybe their caregiver provided the basics, but discouraged too much emotion. Maybe they were told, "Stop crying, you're fine," or "Don't be so dramatic," or "You don't need anyone but yourself." So their nervous system adapted. Instead of reaching out, they pulled in. Instead of depending, they shut down. Instead of showing need, they buried it. And here's the most important part. Their body remembers. Even decades later, in a romantic relationship, that same nervous system reacts. When you lean in close, their body doesn't feel calm. It feels cornered. When you tell them, "I need you," their chest doesn't open. It tightens. When you ask for reassurance, their mind doesn't hear love. It hears pressure. And when you show them your heart, their first instinct isn't to lean closer. It's to retreat. Not because you're wrong, not because your love isn't enough, but because their body has been wired to see intimacy as danger. This is what so many partners misunderstand. You think they're rejecting you. You think they're cold. You think they don't want connection. But the truth is, their system is overwhelmed by it. It's like putting your hand on a hot stove. Even if someone told you, "This heat means safety," your body would still jerk away. That's what happens to the avoidant with intimacy. Your love feels like heat. Your presence feels like intensity. And their body reacts before their mind can catch up. It's not a choice. It's conditioning. Think about what this means. You say, I love you. To you, those words feel grounding. To them, those words might feel like pressure. Pressure to respond the same way. Pressure to live up to your love. Pressure to show more than they feel safe showing. You ask, can we spend more time together? To you, that feels like a natural request. To them, it can feel like being swallowed, like losing the fragile independence they worked so hard to build. You lean in for closeness. To you, it feels intimate. To them, it can feel suffocating. This is the tragedy of avoidant attachment. The very thing they crave, love, is also the very thing they fear. And so, reality doesn't feel like safety. It feels like panic. Let's break down the layers of this panic. Layer 1, fear of engulfment. If they get too close, they fear they'll lose themselves, that your needs will overwhelm theirs, that they'll disappear in the relationship. Layer 2, fear of rejection. If they let themselves rely on you, what if you leave? What if you withdraw? What if the very thing they risked everything to trust is suddenly gone? Layer 3, fear of failure. If they show their love, what if it's not enough? What if they disappoint you? What if you want more than they can give? Each layer adds pressure. Each layer makes reality heavy. Each layer makes fantasy more appealing. Because in fantasy, none of these fears exist. But in reality, every moment of closeness threatens to activate them. This is why avoidants pull away at the moments that confuse you most. When things are going well, you expect them to relax. Instead, they tense. When intimacy deepens, you expect them to open. Instead, they retreat. When you show them your heart, you expect them to mirror it. Instead, they go silent. It's not because they don't feel. It's because reality triggers a lifetime of defenses. To the avoidant, love in real time feels like walking into a storm. Too many unknowns, too much risk, too much vulnerability. So instead of stepping forward, they step back. They distance. They withdraw. Not because they don't want you, but because their body screams, this is not safe. Here's what makes this so heartbreaking. You are not unsafe. Your love is not unsafe. But to their nervous system, all intimacy feels like danger. It doesn't matter if you're kind. It doesn't matter if you're patient. It doesn't matter if you've never abandoned them. Their body remembers before you, and that memory shapes their reality. So when you ask, why can't they just see I love them? The answer is this. It's not about you. It's about the template they carry. And until that template changes, reality will always feel threatening. But here's the paradox. Even though reality triggers panic, they still long for it. Avoidants may act like they don't need love, but deep down, they crave it. They imagine it. They dream of it. It's just that reality feels too raw, too uncontrollable, too vulnerable. So they keep their love alive in fantasy, because in fantasy, love never overwhelms them. In fantasy, they can stay connected without losing control. In fantasy, they can risk intimacy without the threat of rejection. This is why, for the avoidant, fantasy feels safer than reality. Reality is unpredictable. Reality is demanding. Reality triggers every old wound. But fantasy? Fantasy is theirs. Fantasy is controlled. Fantasy is safe. And until they learn how to regulate their nervous system, until they learn that closeness doesn't equal danger, they will always retreat more easily into the world inside their mind than into the arms of the person beside them. The illusion of control, why they choose distance over vulnerability. For the avoidant, love is not just about closeness, it's about control. And here's the truth most people miss. Distance is not just avoidance. It's a survival strategy. It's how they keep control. In a world where intimacy feels unpredictable, think about it. As children, they had no control over the people they needed most. They couldn't decide if their caregiver showed up. They couldn't decide if comfort would be given. They couldn't decide if their feelings would be accepted or dismissed. So, their only option was retreat. Pull in, shut down, become self-sufficient. That was the only form of control they had. And it worked. It kept them safe from disappointment. It kept them safe from shame. It kept them safe from the pain of reaching out and being denied. Fast forward to adulthood. That same strategy remains. Except now, it shows up in relationships. When things get too close, they retreat. When emotions get too heavy, they shut down. When intimacy feels risky, they create space. Because space equals control. Distance equals safety. It's not that they don't feel. It's that they fear feeling too much. And so, they manage love the same way they manage childhood, by keeping it at a distance. Here's the paradox. On the surface, the avoidant looks strong, independent, unbothered, like they don't need anyone. But beneath the surface, that independence isn't strength. It's protection. It's not that they want to be alone. It's that being close feels like losing control. And losing control feels unbearable. Control for them isn't about power over you. It's about survival inside themselves. Because love is unpredictable. Love is messy. Love is vulnerable. And vulnerability feels like danger. So they convince themselves, if I keep love at arm's length, I can't get hurt. That's the illusion of control. Let's break down the ways this illusion shows up. 1. Emotional withdrawal. When emotions rise, they shut down, not because they don't feel, but because feeling feels overwhelming. So they distance to regain control. 2. Silence is safety. When you want answers, they go quiet. It's not indifference, it's management. Silence lets them control what they reveal. 3. Self-sufficiency. They lean on themselves, not others. Depending on someone else feels like handing over control, so they double down on independence. 4. Timing and space. They decide when to engage. They decide when to pull away. By controlling the rhythm of closeness, they reduce the fear of being engulfed. Each of these is not rejection. It's protection. It's their nervous system, trying to maintain a fragile balance. But here's the tragedy. The more they try to control love, the less real it feels. Because love is not control. Love is surrender. Love is risk. Love is stepping into the unknown together. And that unknown is exactly what they are running from. Imagine this. You reach for their hand. They pull away. You ask, "What's wrong?" They say, "Nothing." You show them your heart. They stay silent. On the surface, it feels cold. It feels like rejection. It feels like distance. But inside them, it's chaos. They are not thinking, "I don't care." They are thinking, "If I let this in, I could lose myself. I could lose control." And losing control feels like losing everything. This is why avoidants often choose fantasy over reality. In fantasy, they can love without risk. They can connect without losing control. They can feel without being overwhelmed. But in reality, every step closer feels like handing over power. Every moment of intimacy feels like surrendering safety. So they retreat, not because they don't love you, but because love in real time feels like losing the only defense they've ever had. Let's look at the cycle. Step 1. They feel drawn to you. Your presence is magnetic. They want connection. They want love. Step 2. Closeness builds. Conversations deepen. Intimacy grows. It feels good at first. Step 3. Alarm bells ring. Their body starts to panic. What if I get hurt? What if I can't handle this? What if they leave? Step 4. They withdraw. They pull away to regain control. They tell themselves, I need space. Step 5. Relief. Distance feels safe again. They feel back in control. And then, the cycle repeats. This is the dance of the avoidant. Closer. Retreat. Safer. Repeat. Now here's the part that hurts. They think this control protects them. But in reality, it costs them the very thing they crave. Because connection without vulnerability is not connection. It's an illusion. And the more they protect themselves, the lonelier they become. They want love. They dream of love. But they can't allow it without surrendering control. And surrender feels impossible. So what do? They settle for distance. They hide behind silence. They convince themselves they're fine alone. But the truth is, distance is a cage disguised as safety, a cage disguised as control, a cage disguised as freedom. But freedom without closeness is just loneliness in disguise. And that's the hidden pain of the avoidant. Here's what's most heartbreaking. They don't even know. They're trapped. To them, control feels like strength. Distance feels like choice. Withdrawal feels like power. But really, it's fear. Fear wrapped in independence. Fear wrapped in detachment. Fear wrapped in silence. And until they see through this illusion, they'll keep mistaking self-protection for freedom. So the question becomes, how do you love someone who confuses distance with safety? How do you reach someone who mistakes vulnerability for danger? How do you build closeness with someone who finds control more comforting than connection? The answer isn't easy, because for them, love will always feel threatening until they learn a new way to relate, until they learn that control isn't safety, that distance isn't strength, that vulnerability isn't weakness, and that surrender, the very thing they resist, is the only path to the closeness they secretly long for. Why their love feels hidden. The secret ways avoidants show they care. If you've ever loved an avoidant, you know this feeling. You give and give. You open up. You share your heart. And in return, you get silence, distance, moments that feel empty. It leaves you wondering, do they even love me? Do they feel anything at all? And here's the truth. Yes, they do. Avoidants love deeply, but their love rarely looks like love. It hides. It disguises itself. It shows up in ways so subtle. You could miss it if you're not paying attention. To understand why, we need to go back to their childhood map of love. When they were small, love wasn't expressed through words of comfort. It wasn't expressed through affection. It wasn't expressed through emotional safety. Instead, love might have looked like being provided for, having food on the table, being told to toughen up, being taught to survive. So they learned. Love is not soft. Love is not spoken. Love is survival. Love is doing, not feeling. That script is still inside them, and it shapes how they show love today. This is why avoidants often love in secret ways. Ways that don't look romantic. Ways that don't look obvious. Ways that don't fit the traditional mold of affection. But if you look closely, you'll see it. You'll see it in their actions, in their quiet consistency, in the things they do, rather than the words they say. Here are the hidden signs. An avoidant is truly in love. 1. Small acts of service. They may not say, I love you, but they'll fix something broken. They'll make sure you're safe. They'll quietly take care of things you might not even notice. For them, love is shown in doing, not declaring. 2. Remembering details. They might not shower you with praise, but months later, they'll recall something small you said, something you thought they ignored, but they stored it. And when the time comes, they'll act on it. That's love hidden in memory. 3. Protective instincts. They may appear detached, but if you're in danger, they're the first to step in. If someone hurts you, their quiet rage surfaces. Their protectiveness is proof of a love they rarely verbalize. 4. Sharing space. For an avoidant, allowing you into their world is a big deal. If they let you stay, if they let you close, if they tolerate your presence without pushing you away, that's love in its rawest form. 5. Subtle vulnerability. They won't pour their heart out, but maybe they tell you a childhood story. Maybe they admit a small insecurity. Maybe they share a piece of their world they don't share with anyone else. For them, that tiny moment of openness is monumental. It's their way of saying, "You matter enough for me to risk exposure." But here's where it gets complicated. Because their love doesn't look like love, it often feels invisible. You're left craving reassurance. You're left doubting their feelings. You're left asking, why can't they just say it? Why can't they just show it clearly? The answer? Because clarity feels dangerous to them. To say, "I love you," is to expose themselves. To show affection openly is to risk rejection. To be clear is to be vulnerable. And vulnerability, to them, feels like stepping into fire. So instead, they love in shadows, in sideways expressions, in hidden gestures. You see, for an avoidant, love is safer when it's indirect. It's safer when it's disguised. It's safer when it doesn't force them to stand fully exposed. That doesn't mean it's not real. It means it's filtered. It means it's translated through their fear. Let's imagine a scenario. You're upset one evening. You want comfort. You want them to hold you. You want words of reassurance. But instead of offering that, they get up and cook you dinner. They fix the light bulb that's been out. They make sure the doors are locked. Before you sleep, on the surface, it feels off. It feels like they missed you completely. But underneath, this is how they say, "I care about you. I want you safe. I want you cared for." It's not the language of love you crave, but it's the language of love they know. This is why loving an avoidant requires translation. You have to learn how to read between the lines, how to see love in the things unsaid, how to notice the gestures so quiet they're almost invisible, because their love isn't loud. It whispers. It hides in corners. It shows up in actions that don't look romantic, but are deeply meaningful. Now, let's be honest. This doesn't always feel good. It can feel lonely. It can feel like you're giving more than you receive. It can feel like their love isn't enough. And sometimes it isn't, because relationships need openness. They need clarity. They need shared vulnerability. Hidden love can only go so far. But here's the paradox. The fact that they love at all, despite their wiring, despite their fear, despite their instinct to retreat, is proof of how much you mean to them. Because for an avoidant, loving someone is not natural. It's terrifying. It's overwhelming. So when they choose to love, in any form, that's huge. Let's break this down even further. For a securely attached person, love is expressed in words, touch, closeness, emotional availability. For an avoidant, love is expressed in consistency, stability, practical care, quiet loyalty. Different languages, same longing. They long to be connected. They long to be seen. They long to be loved. But their fear filters the expression. So what comes out looks hidden, looks muted, looks distant. So here's the key insight. If you want to know whether an avoidant truly loves you, don't just listen to their words. Don't just watch for grand gestures. Look at the subtleties. Look at the consistencies. Look at the small ways they show up. That's where their love lives. Quiet, disguised, but real. Here's the irony. They fear vulnerability because it feels unsafe. Yet their very hidden love is the most vulnerable part of them. Every small act of care, every subtle gesture, every quiet offering is their way of risking exposure. It may not look like much, but to them, it's everything. Because behind that gesture is a silent confession. I don't know how to love the way you want, but I love you the only way I know how. And that's the truth about avoidant love. It's hidden, but it's there. It's disguised, but it's real. It's quiet, but it's powerful. Because for someone who has built a life on distance, every step toward you, no matter how small, is a monumental act of love. The turning point, when the avoidant finally lets love in. For so long, it feels impossible. You give, you try, you reach out, and they retreat. They shut down. They vanish into silence. It leaves you thinking, they will never let love in. They are too far gone. They will always run. But that's not the full story. Because there is a turning point, a quiet shift, a hidden moment, when something inside them cracks open, and for the first time, they let love in. But before we talk about that moment, we need to understand why it's so rare. Avoidants don't resist love because they don't want it. They resist because they want it too much. Love is the very thing they've longed for their entire lives. But love is also the thing that hurt them most. When they were young, love was conditional. Love was unpredictable. Love was absent when they needed it most. So, they learned a survival rule. Don't depend. Don't need. Don't hope. That rule kept them safe. It built walls. It built independence. It built a life where they didn't have to rely on anyone. But that same rule became the prison that kept them from love. So what changes? What breaks the cycle? What finally pushes them to let someone in? It's not force. It's not pressure. It's not endless pursuit. It's something quieter, something slower, something that builds over time. The turning point begins when safety replaces fear. At first, it might look like nothing. They sit closer than usual. They linger in your presence. They don't rush to retreat. These are the tiny signs that their nervous system is starting to calm around you. Because for them, love doesn't begin with fireworks. It begins with safety. When they finally feel safe enough, their walls soften, their grip on distance loosens, their body stops bracing for abandonment. And in that space, love seeps in. Here's what it looks like. When they start letting love in, they begin to share. Not all at once, not everything, but pieces of themselves they've kept hidden. Maybe it's a story from childhood. Maybe it's a secret fear. Maybe it's an insecurity they've never spoken aloud. This is not casual. This is monumental. Because for an avoidant, sharing equals risk, and risk equals trust. They begin to stay, instead of vanishing. When things get hard, they stay longer than before. The fight ends, but they don't disappear for days. They pull back, yes, but they return faster. The silence is shorter. Each time they come back quicker. It's a sign that love is becoming stronger. Then fear. They begin to reach out. Avoidants rarely initiate. They wait. They hold back. They protect themselves from rejection. But when they start letting love in, you'll notice the shift. A text you didn't expect. A call you didn't have to make first. A quiet "I miss you." Spoken like it might shatter them, but spoken nonetheless. This is huge. Because for them, reaching out equals need. And needing you is the scariest thing of all. They begin to show affection. Not dramatically, not all at once. But one day, they hold your hand in public. They lean against you on the couch. They kiss you without fear of being caught in vulnerability. These are cracks in their armor. cracks that let love shine through. And then, the most powerful shift of all, they begin to let you see them, not the version they crafted, not the strong, independent mask, not the cool, detached persona, but the real them, the fragile them, the soft, scared, aching for love them. The moment they let you see this side is the moment you know the turning point has arrived. But here's the paradox. When they finally let love in, it doesn't look perfect. It doesn't look smooth. It doesn't look like the movies. It looks messy. It looks hesitant. It looks like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Because even as they open, their fear doesn't vanish overnight. It lingers. It whispers. It tempts them to run again. So their love comes in waves. Push and pull. Close and retreat. But each time they return faster. Each time they risk more. Each time they show a little more. You're watching love rebuild itself in a nervous system that once feared it. So what makes the difference? What allows an avoidant to cross that invisible bridge and let love in? It's not you convincing them. It's not you chasing them. It's not you proving your worth. It's your consistency, your steadiness, your refusal to force, but your refusal to abandon. It's showing up without overwhelming. It's respecting their space while offering connection. It's being safe again and again until their body learns. Love will not destroy them this time. And here's the most important truth. When an avoidant finally lets love in, it's not because they stopped being afraid. It's because love became stronger than fear. Your presence, your patience, your steady heart, these became the medicine that rewrote their old script. The script that once said, "Love will hurt you," is slowly replaced with, "Love can hold you." So if you've ever felt unseen in the presence of an avoidant, if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever wondered whether your love matters at all, remember this. Even if they don't say it, even if they don't show it clearly, even if they fight it with every wall they've built, they feel it. And when the turning point comes, you will see it. You will feel it. You will know. And maybe this is the greatest paradox of all. The avoidant who runs from love is also the one who can love with the deepest intensity. Because for them, every ounce of love given is a victory over fear. Every step toward closeness is a rebellion against their past. Every moment of vulnerability is proof of their courage. Their love may be slow. It may be quiet. It may be hidden. But when it finally arrives, it is fierce. It is loyal. It is real. So if you're on this journey with one, be patient. Be steady. But also, don't lose yourself waiting. Because the truth is, you deserve love that is clear. You deserve love that is safe. You deserve love that doesn't make you question your worth. The avoidant may get there, or they may not, but your heart deserves to be met, fully and openly. And if this message spoke to you, if you saw yourself in these words, if you've lived the push and pull of avoidant love, then don't carry that weight alone. There is healing. There is understanding. There is a path forward. And the more you learn about these patterns, the more power you have to choose love that lifts you instead of love that breaks you. So here's my invitation. If you found value in this, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is loving and avoidant and feels unseen. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden patterns of avoidant love, make sure you stay connected here. Because the more we bring these truths into the light, the less power the shadows will have. And that's where the journey turns. Not in force, not in chasing, but in quiet understanding, patient love, and the courage to hold space. For someone learning, often for the very first time, that love is safe.